Good morning, folks. I haven't posted in a couple of months to YouTube ever since we were in Sturgis, and have yet to complete the Sturgis video that I have a lot of video time of, and I got kind of a slow connection here where I live, and still getting to know the whole how to work the video editing and the YouTube stuff. So I'm going to make a short video of my pursuit, which I'm just over 7,000 miles on. And I did replace the front lowers because of some mishaps I had with the bike at the beginning when we first bought it. We scratched the front fairing, the front lowers on the bottom, so we replaced them a couple of weeks ago. And the Pursuit logo didn't come with them because Indian Motorcycle is behind with like a lot of other manufacturers with certain parts, and maybe sometime in January, February we'll get them, and I'm debating of whether or not we're going to put them on. I did keep the pieces of the motorcycle that got scratched, and I am going to eventually put murals on the bike of Wonder Woman because that's the theme of the bike, and that is the name that my wife gave her, Diana, Wonder Woman. And so far at 7,000 miles, we are more than pleased with the bike. It's lived up to everything that we've come to expect of Indian Motorcycle, with our first purchase being the 2022 FTRS, and now with this. And we were originally going to get a Roadmaster with the balanced fairing, the old-fashioned look, with the front fairing here that looks like a freight train, that I prefer to the Batwing look that they have now, that resembles Harley Davidson. And Indian is not shy about saying, you know, they're not shy, not saying, but they're not shy about sort of copying the motorcycle that they're going after. Copying in a little bit of the design that you can see. But if you look at the two motorcycles side by side, I'm talking about the new Chieftains and Roadmasters next to Harley Davidson Street Glide, there is clearly a difference in the motorcycles, and you can tell the Indian apart from the Harley Davidson. So this bike so far, we are happy with the seat. A lot of guys that even have the premium like we do with this seat are not happy, and they'll change it out. And how you feel in the seat, just like how you feel about looks of a bike, is all subjective. We personally prefer the look of this motorcycle to the Road Glide. And like I said, it's subjective. To me, the front fairing with the single light and the two LED running lights on the side look much better. And a lot of Harley Davidson guys are going to get offended by this statement. Much better than the Tomater two buck teeth front look of the two headlights that the Road Glide has in front. The Indian, to me, looks more intimidating. It's a more handsome look. Again, subjective. And everything about the way the profile of the bike, to me, is more attractive than the Road Glide. But you know, I guess I should have started this off by saying, much like liberals and conservatives, no matter what your persuasion is in terms of how you believe, or being religious or not religious, like those kinds of strongly held beliefs, no matter what a Harley Davidson guy tries to tell me about a Harley Davidson, and I've got 3 of them. So it's not like I didn't own Harley Davidsons. There's 2 right there under the cover. There's one that I'm working on, and my mechanic is working on, and I'm hopping that bike up quite a bit. Looking forward to that getting back. But the Harley guys that will never ever look at another brand of motorcycle, them and their sales guys are never going to convince me to buy a new Harley Davidson over a new Indian. And I am never going to convince those guys to buy an Indian, or that Indian is a superior bike to a Harley Davidson. That's just the way it is. Whether you look at it, I can tell them all the objective pieces of the Indian motorcycle, whether it be the old school Thunderstroke or this new P2A 108, the Power Plus 108, and everything else that's about my bike objectively that is much better than a Harley Davidson. They will never ever be convinced that this is a better bike. Doesn't matter how much objectivity statistics you put in front of them, you won't convince those guys, and they will not convince me of the Harley Davidson. I can admit where this bike is weaker than the Harley Davidson product, and overall fit and finish, I would say the bikes are equivalent overall. No gaps. The way the trunk looks, to me, it's subjective in which look you prefer on the trunks. Just looks. Looking at the bike, looking at the chrome, looking at the pieces, you can't tell me that a Harley Davidson is better. Where you can tell me that a Harley Davidson is better is whatever Harley does with their clear coat on their paint is better than whatever Indian is doing with their paint with the clear coat. Because the clear coat, there's a reason I have this. Well, Harley puts bibs on their bikes to protect this front part, which is going to scratch on their bikes as well. On this bike, Indian did not put a bib. There's a whole lot of real estate between down here and up here to put a long leather strip, but there's been a couple of guys on one of the forums that I'm a part of on Facebook that have put a leather piece on there that looks really good, that a friend made for them, and it looks really good. I put a sport bike tank pad on, protector pad on it, and to me that looks fine. So Harley Davidson does do a better job on their clear coat with their paint on the bike, because this will scratch easier than the Harley Davidson. As far as which one opens better, I see a lot of Harley guys trying to say that this is shabby. It is not shabby. There's a whether you prefer to open your bag like from here or the pretty cool jig that Harley has, I think it's in the back with a switch that opens it up. You can't tell me that the Harley Davidson is better than this one. Go ahead. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of videos out there that will say and try to point out, argue that it's better. It's not. It's a personal taste of where you like to open your side saddlebag. This one to me has more room. Again, Harley Davidson guy is going to tell you with the little filler that they have in here that this is cheap. Harley Davidson's the same dadgum material. So it ain't cheaper in Harley Davidson. It ain't better in Harley Davidson. What Harley Davidson does put a nice little felt cover in here that's like in the trunk of this bike. That. Harley Davidson puts that inside of their saddlebag. To me, it doesn't really matter. When my wife and I have traveled in this bike, we bought the Indian bags. Harley Davidson sells bags as well that are comparable. And we stuff it in here. To me, it's neither here nor there with that felt filler that Harley Davidson has in here. And the other thing that Harley Davidson guys will say is theirs is a quick release where they don't have to. We still have to do kind of what you used to have to do on the old Harleys with the Allen wrench, is remove these bolts here to take off the saddlebag. And also on the Indian, it's kind of locked there. A Harley guy will come and he'll do that to an Indian. He'll close it like that, and he'll do this on his video and tell you, Indian, cheap. See how it rattles? No. It locks twice. You got to press down in it again, and the Indian is perfectly okay. Where Harley Davidson is lacking, in my opinion, and it's just the design of the way they put, it's a personal preference taste, subjective, the way Harley Davidson does their saddlebags. You cannot ride a Harley Davidson without the saddlebag. There's a big track here on the Harley Davidson. It's an unfinished fender, and if you take a Harley saddlebags off and ride without the saddlebags, the bike looks like you got it out of the scrapyard. On Indians, the fender's finished. I could ride this Pursuit if I wanted to without the saddlebags, and it would look just fine. I did put the Reinhardts on it when I replaced the front fairings, so I wasn't going to do that till the year, but I ended up doing it, and it sounds much better. It didn't sound bad to me with the stock. So the trunk, Harley Davidson's opens to the side. I'm kind of torn. It's neither here nor there. opening it like that or opening it to the side. To me, neither one is better than the other. I think this one may be slightly bigger than the Harleys, but the Harleys might be about the same size. My wife and I can put both our full face helmets in here and additional stuff in between the helmets here to the front and the back. So this bike comes with a night light, which has been very helpful at night, especially if I forget to have my flashlight readily available. So also a Harley guy will come in, he'll do that, and he'll tell you, cheap trunk, Indian did a horrible job with the trunk, it won't close, and they'll try to slam it down. You're not supposed to slam these bags down. If your dealership salesman, just like mine here in Albuquerque did, which he did a fantastic job with both my Pursuit and my FTR, walking me through everything with the bike. We spent about almost an hour before I took off on the bike. You press down on the trunk on the Indian and it's perfectly okay. You don't slam the trunks down on the Indian, you press them down. Same thing with these. You don't want to slam these in. You just press it down. You hear the first click, you hear the second click, and your bag is fully closed. I won't go through the whole automatic locks of these bags. Everybody's gone through those a bunch. But I just wanted to do a quick video on, 7,000 plus miles on my bike, and that I am more than pleased with the motorcycle. Indian can do a better job with the clear coat on the paint, and I hope that they do. This part right here, there's some Harley guy that tried to compare a Challenger and a Road Glide and said that this is cheap. Well, the plastic on the Indian is not any better or any worse than the plastic on the Harley. Indian chose not to paint this, and I actually like the fact that Indian didn't paint this piece. With my wife's feet up here, there's no chance of her scratching that. There is a chance of her scratching this piece right here. She hasn't yet. She keeps her feet down. More of a chance of her scratching that. And it doesn't matter how much clear coat you put on a Harley. You hit that with the heel of your foot. I don't care what kind of clear coat you have on the bike, which I admit Harley's is better. You're still going to scratch it. So I like this look right here. This look of this piece that covers up the wiring. Harley has a piece that covers up the wiring as well, plastic. And this is not any cheaper. It's not any better than the Harley product. The engine, to me, looks better than both the Power Plus and the Milwaukee 8. It's just a beautiful, modern looking engine. And that's my personal opinion. Both Indian and Harley guys that are into the old school look will disagree. With the two old school engines, I actually like the way the Power Plus looks better than the Milwaukee 8, and the Milwaukee 8's a beautiful looking engine. But I think if I was to only have between those two bikes and just base it off of how the engines look, I would have picked the Thunderstroke over the M8. But overall, in the overall product, the quality, the technology, a lot of Indian guys are complaining about the ride command on these bikes. Get on a forum with the guys on especially the guys on the Pan Americas, because I follow Harley Davidson stuff and I follow what they're doing. I still have 3, and I am not completely shut off to buying another Harley brand new, but I am 99.9% shut off. So not 100%, 99.9%. And that had more to do with customer service from service departments at 3 dealerships. And when I finally walked into Indian, you can add on top of that dealer markups. Because my dealership and what I've seen of the few Indian dealerships that I've walked into, and you can always see their Indian dealers' prices on their bikes on the floor. They're not shy about them. The dealer markups for Harley Davidsons are just outrageous, and they're basing it off of the name Harley Davidson. And they're still living in a world where Harley Davidson used to be the only American motorcycle around. There was Victory, but Victory never had the chance that Indian motorcycle has under Polaris. I understood at the time that Victory was around, that it was a better bike than the Harleys I was buying, but I was going to buy the Harley Davidson anyway. I just like the way they look better. Now with Indian being part of Polaris and Indian motorcycle design and aesthetics of the bikes, they're much better than what the Victories were. And I think Indian Motorcycle under Polaris did it smart the way they started out with the old classic Indian look, which you can say Indian copied Harley. Well, I would argue that maybe Harley copied Indian way back in the 1920s and 30s, because even then the bikes looked very similar. They're American motorcycles owned by American companies, built by American men and women. Hey, so we're American, man. We got similar taste and stuff, for the most part, especially when it comes to vehicles and motorcycles. So from the very beginning, the bikes looked similar, and from the very beginning, just like now, Indian Motorcycle actually focused a whole lot more on performance. If you look back at the history of the company, they were focused on performance back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s before they shut down in the early 50s. And that's pretty much where it's at right now with Indian Motorcycle. It's a better performing bike overall. The motorcycle, in my opinion, is both subjectively and objectively is a better product. And enough so to where I am looking in 2 years at buying a Scout as my third Indian motorcycle. So at that point, I'll have 3 Indians and 3 Harley Davidsons. And with that, at 7,000 miles, I'm probably going to go out for a ride today. It's cold here in New Mexico, but with the protection that I get off of this Pursuit, I can't really feel it. One more thing, now that I'm talking about the cold, since I ride this more than my FTR now that the weather's very cold, this is where the trickle charger is, also to connect your accessory heated items or whatever. Not a good spot for connecting your heated gear. Indian Motorcycle needs to come up with something up underneath the seat or somewhere over here where you're not going to be rubbing your cords on the tank. So I am pretty much riding without my heated gear connected because this is completely in the wrong spot to do that. It's perfectly okay for the trickle charger, but for the for my heated gear, it is not. It is in a very impractical spot. But my heated grips and my heated seat have more than compensated for not being able to connect my heated gear. And I've ridden so far for 2 weeks in the mornings when I go with my wife to the gym. Leaving the house at about 5 o'clock in the morning. It's about 25 degrees here to 20 degrees in the mornings starting out in north central New Mexico. By the time I get to Santa Fe, it's about 31, 32 degrees there because it's a city. A little bit warmer in Santa Fe than it is up here in the country. So with that, that's how I feel about Harley Davidson and the Indian product. I own both. I own bikes from both companies. Granted, my Harley Davidsons are not 2022s or the modern Milwaukee 8 Harley Davidsons. But having gone into Harley enough and sat on their bikes and seen how they ride, I got riding buddies that have newer Harleys. I'm not convinced that to buy another Harley Davidson, and I will not convince a Harley Davidson guy that the Indian that I chose to purchase is a better bike. They may when they're just looking at themselves by themselves at home, say, yeah, man, Espinosa, man, I wish I had the balls to get myself an Indian motorcycle, but they just can't break down and admit it. So me, I was open-minded enough to look at another company, and I'm just glad that there's an American motorcycle company that is a viable alternative to the motor company. And the fact that Indian Motorcycle is around, even though they're much smaller than Harley Davidson, you can clearly tell that this very small American motorcycle company has had an impact on pushing Harley Davidson to get off their fourth point of contact and start looking at making a better, more modern product. So with that, on a Sunday that I'm probably going to go out and put a few more miles on my Pursuit, Espinoza out.